The bridge of the alien command ship fell silent as Captain Crix stared at the scan results. His forearms trembled slightly, a sign of deep unease among his species. The massive viewscreen displayed the human vessel floating in the void between. Stars, looking deceptively simple compared to their own crystalline warship. "Run the scan again," Crix ordered, his voice carrying across the bridge. "There must be an error." Lieutenant Vox, the ship's tactical officer, moved his tentacles across the control panel with practiced precision. The scanning beam swept over the human ship once more, penetrating its hull, analyzing every component, every system, every molecule of its construction. The results came back identical. "Captain," Vox said slowly, "the readings are accurate. That ship ... It's impossible." The human vessel was smaller than their command ship, perhaps only 3/4 the size. Its design was brutally simple. A long, angular hull painted in dark gray, with weapon ports running along its sides like the teeth of some ancient predator. No elegant curves, no aesthetic considerations, just pure function. But what the scans revealed inside made every alien on the bridge step back from their stations. "They have nuclear weapons as secondary armaments," the weapons officer reported, his voice barely a whisper. "What we use as our ultimate deterrent, they consider backup weapons." Crix felt his secondary heart begin to race. The Galactic Council had ruled nuclear weapons too dangerous for standard deployment 300 cycles ago. Only the most desperate situations warranted their use. Yet these humans had dozens of them, casually mounted in missile tubes like conventional ordnance. What about their primary weapons? Crix asked, though he feared the answer. "Antimatter cannons, Captain. 12 of them, each one capable of..." Vox paused, rechecking his calculations. "Each one could crack a moon in half." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. The most advanced species in the Galactic Council might have 1 or 2 experimental antimatter weapons, kept under the strictest security. These humans had turned them into standard equipment. Their armor? Crix pressed on, needing to understand the full scope of what they faced. Layered composite, unknown materials. "Our computers estimate it would take our main gun 17 direct hits to penetrate their hull. They could destroy us in 1. Commander Rex, the ship's science officer, suddenly spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting something else. Their power source. It's not fusion. What then?" "They appear to be using controlled black holes. Multiple microsingularities contained in magnetic fields. The power output is..." Rex's translator struggled to find the right word. "Monstrous." Crix felt his legs weaken. Black hole technology was theoretical, the stuff of ancient myths and the dreams of mad scientists. To harness such forces would require an understanding of physics that surpassed even the eldest races of the galaxy. "There's more," Vox added reluctantly. "Their computer systems show signs of quantum processing at a scale we've never seen. Their tactical calculations would be instantaneous. In battle, they would know our moves before we make them." The captain moved to the viewscreen, studying the human ship with new eyes. It hung there in space, silent and waiting. They had hailed it thinking to add another primitive species to their empire. They had thought to demand surrender, to collect tribute, to demonstrate the superiority of the Galactic Council's might. Now, Crix understood the truth. They hadn't found prey. They had found an apex predator. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the humans are responding to our hail." On the screen, a human face appeared. The creature looked soft, weak even, with only 2 arms and lacking any natural weapons. But its eyes, there was something in those eyes that made Crix's scales turn cold. Intelligence, certainly, but more than that. These were the eyes of a species that had clawed its way to the top of their world through cunning and violence. then looked to the stars and decided to conquer them too. "Greetings," the human said, its translation smooth and polite. "I'm Admiral John Smith of the Earth, Defense Ship Vengeance. You scanned our vessel. I trust you found everything in order?" The words were friendly, but Crix heard the underlying message clear as day. "We know you scanned us. We let you see what you saw. We want you to know exactly what you're dealing with." Admiral John Smith watched the alien captain's reaction on his bridge display with careful attention. The four-armed being's scales had shifted from purple to a pale green, what his xenobiology team had identified as a fear response. Good. Fear might keep everyone alive today. "Captain Crix of the Galactic Council," the alien finally responded, its translated voice steadier than its appearance suggested. We came to welcome Earth to the galactic community." John allowed himself a thin smile. "Is that what you call it?" "Your fleet surrounding our colony on New Eden suggests otherwise." Behind him, his bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. Commander Lisa Park, his tactical officer, had already calculated 17 different ways to destroy the alien fleet. The weapons officer, Lieutenant Tom Wilson, had targeting solutions locked on every enemy vessel. They were ready for war, but John hoped it wouldn't come to that. Not because he feared losing. The battle would last less than 3 minutes. But because humanity had learned the cost of unnecessary violence. "Perhaps we should discuss history," John said, settling back in his command chair. "Tell me, Captain, how long has your species been spacefaring?" 2,000 cycles, Crix replied, with evident pride. "We are among the younger races of the Council. Interesting. Humanity has been in space for less than 200 years, John said, watching the alien's confusion grow. But we've been fighting for 50,000. He gestured to his communications officer, who transmitted a data package to the alien ship. "That's a brief history of human warfare. I think you'll find it educational." On the alien bridge, Crix and his officers watched in growing horror as images and data flooded their screens. Wars with sticks and stones. Wars with bronze and iron. Wars that consumed entire civilizations. Entire continents. The humans had weapons before they had agriculture, had learned to kill before they had learned to write. "This is madness," Vox whispered. They fought wars over colors of skin, over invisible gods, over lines drawn on maps. "Look at this," Rex pointed to one section. They developed nuclear weapons while still planet-bound. Then they used them. On themselves. On their own cities. Crix watched the footage from something called World War II. Millions dead. Cities reduced to ash. And then, instead of learning peace, the humans had simply found more efficient ways to kill. Chemical weapons. Biological weapons. Weapons that destroyed minds instead of bodies. They turned warfare into a science. Crix observed, his voice hollow. Every defeat taught them to be deadlier. Every victory pushed them to prepare for the chew. Next war, the data showed humanity's expansion into space. First, tentative steps to their moon, then Mars, then the outer planets. And with each step, they brought their weapons. The first thing humans had done upon reaching space wasn't to celebrate or explore. It was to figure out how to fight there. "Captain," his strategic analyst called out, "look at their military doctrine." The screen displayed human tactical manuals. Where the Galactic Council fought wars of maneuver and honor, humans fought wars of annihilation. They targeted supply lines, destroyed food sources, attacked civilians to break enemy morale. They had a word, total war, that described conflict where everything and everyone was a target. "They have rules for war," Rex noted with confusion, "but also entire strategies built around breaking those rules." John's voice came through the communication channel again. "We noticed something interesting when we studied your Galactic Council, Captain. You fight wars like games. Formal declarations, agreed-upon battlefields, limits on weapons and tactics. Very civilized. As all warfare should be, Crix replied, though his voice lacked conviction. We tried that once, John continued. Long ago, wars had rules. Champions would fight in single combat to spare armies. Then someone realized that if you killed the enemy while they slept, you won without losing a single soldier. War isn't a game to us, Captain. It's survival. And we're very, very good at surviving. The tactical display updated, showing the positions of human ships throughout the sector. Crix hadn't noticed them before. They were running silent, hidden in the void. Dozens of them, each one as powerful as the Vengeance. Your council rules through strength, John said. You find primitive species, overwhelm them with superior technology, and add them to your empire. But you've never faced a species that spent its entire evolution becoming better killers. You've never faced humans. What do you want? Crix asked, all pretense of superiority gone. Simple. Leave human space. Never return. And spread the word. Humanity is off limits. Captain Crix stared at the tactical display, counting the human ships that had appeared from nowhere. 47 vessels, each one a masterpiece of destructive engineering. His fleet of 12 ships, which had seemed so mighty just hours ago, now looked like toys facing titans. Admiral Smith, Crix began carefully, surely we can reach a peaceful agreement. The Galactic Council has much to offer. Technology, trade routes, cultural exchange. We scanned your databases when you approached, John interrupted. Your technology is 300 years behind ours. Your trade routes would slow our expansion. And your culture. He paused, choosing his words carefully, revolves around subjugation. We have no interest. On the human bridge, Commander Park leaned toward her admiral. Sir, they're charging weapons. John sighed. There was always one who had to test the boundaries. Which ship? The destroyer on their left flank. Captain appears to be young, probably trying to prove something. Target their weapons only. Disable, don't destroy. Park's fingers danced across her console. Firing solution locked. Before Crix could issue an order to stand down, space lit up with impossible violence. A beam of pure antimatter erupted from the Vengeance, crossing the void in an instant. It struck the destroyer with surgical precision, cutting through shields like paper and destroying every weapon port along the ship's hull. The entire attack lasted less than 2 seconds. Damage report, Crix shouted to his fleet. The warriors. Pride has lost all offensive capabilities, came the panicked reply. No casualties, but, Captain, they could have destroyed the entire ship just as easily. The human admiral's face remained calm on the screen. That was a warning shot, Captain. Crix, your officer will live to learn from his mistake. This time, Rex was frantically analyzing the attack. Captain, the precision required for that strike. They hit 17 separate targets with one beam, adjusting the antimatter stream's intensity in microseconds. It's like using a planet killer to perform surgery. You wanted a demonstration of human capabilities, John continued. Very well. Observe the moon to your starboard. All eyes turned to the small, dead moon floating nearby. It was roughly 3,000 kilometers in diameter, a barren rock that had orbited the local star for millions of years. Lieutenant Wilson, John said calmly, standard bombardment pattern, half yield, aye, sir. The Vengeance turned, with surprising grace for such a large vessel. 3 of its antimatter cannons aligned with the moon. The aliens watched their sensors in disbelief as power readings spiked beyond anything they thought possible. The cannons fired. 3 streams of antimatter, each containing more destructive power than the Council's entire nuclear arsenal, struck. the moon simultaneously. The surface didn't just crack, it liquefied, then vaporized. The streams pushed deeper, through the mantle, to the core itself. The moon held together for exactly 4 seconds. Then it exploded, not broke apart, not crumbled. Exploded like a bomb. Chunks of molten rock, the size of cities, flew in all directions. The core's death turning the moon into an expanding cloud of superheated debris. The alien ship's shields flared as smaller fragments struck them, and Crix realized with cold terror that those 3 beams had delivered enough energy to destabilize an entire celestial body. Half yield, Vox said numbly. They destroyed a moon at half yield. That moon was uninhabited. John's voice cut through their shock. But imagine if it hadn't been. Imagine if it was one of your colony worlds, your home world. We could crack. Planets open like eggs, Captain. Your shields, your fleets, your ancient defenses, they mean nothing. Commander Rex was still processing the data. The energy requirements. Captain, maintaining those weapons would require the power output of a star. 3 stars, actually, John corrected, having overheard. Each of our black hole reactors generates stellar-level energy. We have 4 per ship. The bridge of the alien vessel fell completely silent. They were confronting something beyond their comprehension, a species that had turned warfare into such an art form that they could casually destroy moons as a demonstration. But here's what you need to understand. John leaned forward, his expression serious. We don't want to use these weapons. Humanity has seen enough war. We've burned our own cities, poisoned our own air, nearly destroyed our own planet learning these lessons. We built these ships not for conquest, but for protection. Protection from what? Crix asked. From species like yours, John replied simply. Species that think might makes right. Species that expand through force rather than friendship. Asterisk, in the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, 500 representatives from across the galaxy watched the footage in stunned silence. The recording from Captain Crix's ship played on the massive holographic display, showing the human warship's casual destruction of an entire moon. Elder Zara of the Primarch Coalition, a being whose species had ruled space for 10,000 years, stood slowly on her 6 legs. Her crystalline form caught the light as she moved, but there was no beauty in it now, only fear. This cannot be real, she declared, though her voice trembled. No species advances this quickly. The humans must have found ancient technology, perhaps from the Forerunners. No, Captain Crix said from his position at the witness podium. He had traveled directly here after the encounter, breaking countless speed regulations to bring this warning. We performed deep scans. Every component of their technology is original, designed by human minds, built by human hands. They created these weapons themselves. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. Representatives turned to each other, speaking in dozens of languages, all expressing the same disbelief and terror. Show them the rest, Crix said quietly. The display changed, showing the data package the humans had transmitted. The history of human warfare filled the air above the council members. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 warriors held off thousands. The Mongol conquests, where horsemen destroyed empires. World War I, where millions died in muddy trenches for meters of ground. World War II, where entire cities burned. They glorify war, observed the representative from the Merchant Guild. They make entertainment from violence, tell stories of their battles to their children. Look closer, Crix urged. They don't glorify war. They remember it. Every defeat, every victory, every death. They study war like we study peace. They prepare for it constantly, even in peacetime. Elder Vask of the warrior caste stood, his 4 arms crossed. His species had been the Council's military backbone for millennia. They are barbarians, savages. We should gather the entire fleet and eliminate them before they spread. Did you not watch the recording? Crix asked incredulously. One ship. One human ship disabled our destroyer without killing anyone, and destroyed a moon as a demonstration. They have 47 ships in that sector alone. Our entire fleet is 400 ships. Then we build more ships. Vask declared, better weapons. Rex, who had accompanied his captain, activated his datapad. I've run the calculations. 2. Match one human ship's firepower, we would need to advance our technology 300 years. To develop their black hole reactors, perhaps 1,000. And that assumes they stop advancing. Which they won't, Crix added. The humans showed. Use their history for a reason. They've been improving their weapons continuously for 50,000 years. In the time it would take us to match their current technology, they'll have advanced beyond our comprehension. Elder Zara's form pulsed with agitation. Then what do? You suggest surrender? Submit to these primitives? They don't want our submission, Crix explained. Admiral Smith was clear. They want to be left alone. No contact, no interference, no expansion into their territory. Isolation, mused Elder Toth of the Science Directorate. They seek isolation. Why? On the display, new images appeared. Human colonies. Not military bases or fortresses, but cities. With parks and schools, children playing, families having meals, art galleries and concert halls. Because they're tired, Crix said softly. The Admiral said humanity has seen enough war. They've burned their world fighting each other. Now they just want peace. But he paused, making sure every representative understood. They'll annihilate anyone who threatens that peace. This is unprecedented, Elder Zara said. A species this powerful could conquer the galaxy. Why haven't they? Maybe, suggested a younger representative, because they know what conquest costs. Their history shows what happens to conquerors. They all fall eventually. Elder Vask slammed his fist on his podium. This is cowardice. We are the Galactic Council. We have ruled for millennia. And will continue to rule, Crix said, as long as we stay away from human space. They've given us a choice. Respect their boundaries and live, or challenge them and face extinction. The council chamber fell quiet as each representative considered the implications. For the first time in their history, they had encountered a species they couldn't conquer, couldn't intimidate, couldn't even properly comprehend. I propose, Elder Zara said finally, that we classify human space as a restricted zone. No council ships, no contact, no expansion in their direction. For how long? Someone asked. Forever, Crix answered. Or until they decide otherwise. 6 months had passed since the encounter at New Eden. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. In the neutral trade station, orbiting between council space and the newly designated human exclusion zone, Ambassador Maria Davis sat across from Captain Crix, who had been appointed as the council's official liaison. Your people are terrified of us, Maria observed, sipping what passed for coffee in this part of the galaxy. She was a small woman, elderly by human standards, with silver hair and kind eyes. Nothing about her suggested the military might of her species. Can you blame us? Crix replied, his scales now a neutral blue. Your warships could end our civilization in days. But we won't, Maria said simply. And that's what your council needs to understand. We're not conquerors, Captain. We're survivors who've learned that conquest brings only temporary victory. Through the station's viewport, they could see ships from various species going about their business, but all carefully avoiding the invisible line that marked human territory. The fear was palpable, even in empty space. Your isolation has had unexpected effects, Crix said, pulling up a holographic display. Several border conflicts have ended. Species that were preparing for war have made peace instead. Maria smiled. Fear of a greater threat often unites former enemies. We've seen it throughout our history. But you're not a threat, Crix pointed out. You've made that clear. We're not a threat as long as we're left alone, Maria corrected. But the possibility that we could be, that's what keeps your conflicts from escalating. No one wants to weaken themselves when there's a sleeping giant next door. The data showed the changes clearly. Military spending across the Council had shifted from offensive to defensive. Scientific cooperation had increased as species pooled resources to study human technology from afar. Trade had actually improved as old enemies found common ground in their mutual wariness of humanity. You've accidentally created peace, Crix said with something like amazement. Not accidentally, Maria revealed. Admiral Smith predicted this. Humanity studied your council for years before you found us. We knew you were coming. We prepared for this exact scenario. Crix's scales shifted to yellow. Surprise. You wanted us to scan your ship? We wanted you to see exactly what you were dealing with. No more, no less. Fear based on ignorance leads to foolish actions. Fear based on understanding leads to wisdom. A young human officer entered, handing Maria a tablet. She read it, and her expression grew serious. What is it? Crix asked. The Zorax Empire, Maria said. They're not part of your council. They've been attacking one of our outer colonies, testing our defenses. Crix knew of the Zorax, a violent species that had refused council membership, preferring to raid and pillage. What will you do? Maria stood, her elderly frame straight and confident. What we must. Captain, I'm authorized to show you something. Would you come with me? They took a shuttle to the human side of the station, a section Crix had never entered. Through secured doors and checkpoints, they arrived at an observation deck. Below, Crix saw something that made his heart stop. Hundreds of human ships. Not dozens, hundreds. All powered down, waiting in perfect formation. And beyond them, construction yards building more. This is one of 17 such fleets, Maria said quietly. We showed you 47 ships because that's what we wanted you to see. The reality is, we could darken the stars with our vessels. If we chose to, why show me this? Crix asked, his voice barely a whisper. Because in 12 hours, the Zorax Empire will cease to exist. Not their species. Will evacuate the civilians first. But their military, their government, their ability to threaten anyone ever again? Gone. And we want the Council to witness it. To understand that our restraint is a choice, not weakness. The next day, the entire Galactic Council watched as 3 human fleets appeared in Zorax space. The empire that had terrorized the Outer Rim for centuries was dismantled in less than 6 hours. Military installations vaporized, shipyards turned to cosmic dust, weapons facilities carefully excised from populated areas and destroyed. The Zorax military simply ceased to be, but true to Maria's word, not a single civilian was harmed. Human medical ships treated the wounded. Human supply ships delivered food to disrupted planets. It was annihilation wrapped in mercy, devastation. Delivered with compassion, the message was clear to everyone watching. Humanity could end you, but they'd rather not dot in the council chambers. Elder Zara made the only announcement that mattered. The human exclusion zone is now permanent. May we never give them reason to leave it. And in the void between stars, humanity's ships returned to their silent vigil, protectors of a species that had learned the ultimate truth of warfare. The greatest victory is the war you never have to fight. Epilogue years later, when young species joined the Galactic Council, they would ask about the empty space on the star maps, the vast region marked only with warnings. Here there be dragons, the elders would say, using an ancient human phrase they'd learned. dragons who chose to sleep. Let them rest and pray they never wake.